All right, so today we're diving into something a little different.
Okay.
We've got these notes from a Dr. Jasvant Rathod.
Right.
Now, he's a professor, and these are notes that he gives to his students
Hmm.
on how to write the discussion section of a research paper.
Okay. Yeah.
So you might be thinking at this point, like, okay, research papers, that's not really my thing,
Right.
but
Not exactly light reading.
yeah, not really light reading, but stick with us here because what we're actually doing is looking at the principles of how to think, how to analyze information.
A framework, isn't it?
Yeah, like how do smart people take in new information and then figure out what to do with it?
Mm-hmm.
And this is useful for anything, whether you are reading a news article
Absolutely.
or, trying to understand a business report.
Yeah.
Or even just like, figuring out why your project at work went off the rails.
Yeah.
So that's what we're really looking at today.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Rathod's advice
Right.
really gives us a great framework for doing that.
It's a really neat way to look at it, I think.
Yeah, and he starts with this idea of summarizing the key findings.
Okay.
Now, this isn't just, listing out the facts and figures.
It's the data.
Yeah, it's really going deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's about saying, okay, what were the big questions that this research was trying to answer,
Right.
and did we answer them?
Yeah.
And what does it mean?
So it's about meaning.
Yeah, so he uses this example of like a new teaching method.
Right.
And whether this teaching method actually improved student test scores.
Okay. Yeah.
And he says the important part isn't just saying,
Right.
oh, the scores went up by 10% or 20%.
Yeah, just the numbers.
It's saying, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Does this mean that this new method could actually improve how students learn?
Right. So it's about the implications.
Yeah. So when you are looking at new information, any new information, what's the first question that you think you should ask yourself?
I think that the first question should be almost like, what's the headline?
Okay.
Instead of...
Like the takeaway.
Yeah, like what's the takeaway? What's the one-sentence summary that answers that initial question or problem that the information is addressing?
Yeah.
So in Dr. Rathod's example, the initial question might have been, does this new teaching method improve test scores?
Right.
And then the headline is, yes.
Right.
This new method appears to improve academic performance.
Perfect.
So it's like getting to that essence immediately.
Yeah, get to the essence.
Yeah.
All right, so you've got the headline. You've got that key takeaway.
Right.
Now, Dr. Rathod says the next thing you got to do is connect it to what's already out there.
To the existing
research, other studies that have been done, maybe just the general understanding of the field.
The broader context.
Yeah, you want to see where your new piece of information fits in.
Exactly.
Into the bigger picture.
Like a puzzle.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the case of the teaching method, he's saying maybe these positive results actually align with other things we know about active learning, which has already been shown to be effective. But maybe the study goes a step further and shows that it's effective across all types of students.
Yeah, different demographics.
Yeah. So when you encounter some new information, how do you start to build those connections?
Okay, so I think about it almost like building a mental map.
Okay.
So when you encounter a new fact or a new finding, you ask yourself, okay, where does this fit on my map?
Right.
Are there any similar landmarks?
Yeah.
Does this confirm what I already thought? Or does it suggest I need a whole new route?
I love that.
And it's about looking for the overlaps, but also the divergences.
Yeah.
Has someone else already explored this?
Right.
What did they find? And if this new information that you're encountering differs from what's already out there, what might explain those differences?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's not about just finding information that agrees with you.
Right.
It's about understanding where it sits in the broader landscape.
It's about getting the full picture.
Exactly.
So we've got the headline.
Yeah.
We're connecting it.
Connecting to existing knowledge.
Yeah. What's next?
Okay, well, Dr. Rathod talks about unpacking the so what.
Oh, okay.
The implications.
This is where it gets really interesting.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
You've got to figure out what these findings actually mean.
Okay.
So not just what they are, but what they mean for, the field that you're talking about.
Right.
For how things are done. For how we understand the world.
Yeah.
So,
like, what's the impact going to be?
yeah, exactly. So with our improved test scores example,
right.
If this teaching method really does consistently improve scores,
yeah.
what are the implications of that? Do we need to change education policy?
Right.
Do we need to change how we train teachers?
Exactly.
So you can think about it like, okay, why should anyone care about this?
Right.
What could this mean in practical terms?
Yeah, like what problems could it solve?
Yeah, or what new challenges might it create?
Right.
It's about looking ahead a bit.
I like that.
Yeah.
So you're thinking about the impact?
The ripple effect.
The ripple effect.
It's not just about those immediate data points. It's about thinking bigger.
Okay. And then after the implications, Dr. Rathod brings up this really crucial element, and that's honesty.
Okay.
He says you've got to acknowledge the limitations of the research.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There are always going to be limitations.
Of course.
So maybe the study only involved a small group of people.
A small sample size, yeah.
Right.
Which could be a problem.
Or the way that they collected the data might have had some weaknesses.
Right, in methodology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he gives these examples of like maybe a small sample size makes it harder to apply those findings to a larger population.
You can't generalize.
Right. Or maybe they were relying on people's self-reports, like what they said about themselves.
Right, which can be a bit subjective.
Which could be biased.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why is it so important to look for those limitations?
Well, I think about it like reading the fine print.
Yeah.
No study.
Right.
No report, no analysis is ever going to be perfect.
That's true.
So understanding the limitations helps you gauge how strong the information is, how reliable it is.
Okay.
It keeps you from making claims that are too broad.
Right.
Or overstating the conclusions.
Exactly.
So when you are evaluating new information,
right.
Ask yourself, what were the potential weaknesses?
Okay.
How was this information gathered?
Yeah.
How was it analyzed? Could there be other factors that maybe influence the results? How confident can I be in these findings? And in what situations might they not apply?
That's a great point.
It's a healthy skepticism.
Yeah, I like that a lot, the fine print.
The fine print.
All right, so we've looked at...
So we've looked at implications.
The implications.
We've looked at limitations.
The limitations.
Yeah.
Now Dr. Rathod talks about looking ahead.
Okay.
And what he means by that is like...
Looking ahead.
Okay, where could future research go from here?
Right, so future research.
Yeah, he says a good discussion section doesn't just end. It opens up new questions.
This is new questions, yeah.
So using the teaching method example again.
Okay.
Maybe future studies could look at how long do these improved test scores last?
Yep.
Do they last a month? Do they last a year?
Does it have a long-term impact?
Right. Or does it work as well in different subjects?
Right.
Math versus history versus science.
Different contexts.
Yeah. So how can our listeners, when they're reading something new, how can they adopt this forward-looking perspective?
I think see every piece of information as a starting point.
Okay.
Not the final destination.
Right.
So what questions does this raise for you?
Right.
What would you want to know next? So in the teaching example, you might wonder, does this work for all age groups? Are there any downsides to this method?
Right.
And this kind of thinking encourages you to really engage with the material.
Yeah.
And it keeps your curiosity alive.
It keeps that spark.
Yeah. So ask yourself, what don't we know yet? What are the natural next steps for exploring this topic further?
Yeah.
What new questions has this information sparked?
I love that idea of like information as a springboard for new questions.
Yeah.
And finally, Dr. Rathod talks about ending with a strong, balanced summary.
Okay.
You want to restate the key significance of whatever you're looking at. But you don't want to overstate it.
Right. You don't want to overstate.
You don't want to make claims that aren't supported by the information.
So the evidence.
By the evidence.
Yeah.
So he ends his teaching method example by saying, okay, this needs more research. But it does show some real promise. So what's the lesson here for our listeners?
So I think it's about synthesizing all the pieces.
Okay.
So you've got the main findings.
Right.
You've got how they connect to what's already known. You've got the implications.
Right.
You've got the limitations.
Yeah.
And you've got those potential future directions.
Yeah.
And you've got to put it all together.
Right.
And come to a conclusion that's well-reasoned and nuanced. Avoid the urge to just jump to a definitive answer.
Right.
Instead, aim for a summary that reflects the complexity of the information and acknowledges that there are things we still don't know.
Yeah.
So think, okay, based on everything I've considered, what's the most reasonable takeaway here? What can I say with confidence? And where do we still need more information?
Wow. So, you see, even though Dr. Rathod is talking about, research papers and academic stuff, these principles are really useful.
Incredibly useful.
For anyone who is just trying to make sense
of everyday information,
of the world around them,
right,
of the information they encounter every day.
Exactly.
And by focusing on that summary, connecting
to existing knowledge,
understanding the implications, acknowledging the limitations, and thinking about what comes next, you can approach any new information with a much more critical and insightful mind.
It's about being empowered as an information consumer.
Absolutely. And we hope that this deep dive has given you
the tools.
Some new tools to do just that.
Yeah.
So what is one thing that really sticks with you as a takeaway from all of this?
Yeah, like a practical takeaway.
Yeah. How are you going to approach information differently in the future? Are you going to look for the headline? Are you going to think about the ripple effects? So think about it. Next time you are trying to get to the bottom of something.
What's really powerful here is that this advice empowers you to be an active participant in the process of understanding.
Right.
You're not just passively absorbing information.
Right.
You're actively analyzing it.
You're thinking about it.
Yeah, you're thinking critically.
Yeah.
You're evaluating it.
Right.
So the next time you're scrolling through the news
or reading a report, remember these principles. Ask the questions. Connect the dot. Think about the limitations. And you might be surprised at how much deeper your understanding becomes.
That's a great place to end it.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Thanks.
That deeper understanding is what empowers you
to
make better decisions.
Better decisions in all aspects of your life.
In life.
Yeah. Awesome.
Great talking to you.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.